You're watching the Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
What is up, everybody? We are back for our second episode of Kickin' It With Onrie, the live crowdfunding show. Today's episode features one of my favorite people in comics. So stick around. We got a great episode for you guys. Great episode for you guys coming up right after this intro. Right after my awesome intro.
My computer totally froze. Please hold. Stall.
Hey, how do you guys yeah.
For years, I have traveled the world slinging my creator-owned comics at the biggest and hottest cons. Now I'm sitting down with creators who have active crowdfunding campaigns happening right now, and I'm opening the gateway so that you can connect with them and support their work. You're watching Kickin' It With Onrie, the live crowdfunding show.
As I was saying, what do you guys use when your skin gets dry on your hands? I use Gold Bond. Do we get paid for advertising for Gold Bond, Kyle?
No.
Oh. All right. Well, anyway, my hands are as soft as pillows right now, and we got a great guest here for you guys. How's that for a stall? Was that a good stall? No, that was not a good stall. All right. Anyway, we got an awesome guest. He's going to make up for my lack of ability to stall. We got Mr. William Samuel Quinn in the house.
What's up, my brother Onrie? How you doing, man?
How you doing, buddy?
I'll tell you, I am making comics and RPG books and shipping like mad, as you can see. We finally got the last of our books in for 47 Furious Tales issue 3's fulfillment, and that stuff's going out. I just packed over 300 books last night and shipped those. I got another 200, I think, to do today. Now that I'm done working, and we'll get that out, including some for you and your fans, man.
I saw it. So, folks, just so you know, William is Sam is the creator of,
and they're pretty. They're so pretty.
Yes, they are. One of my favorite books that he has created is 47 Furious Tales, which now is in its third issue. The first two issues have sold out on multiple occasions on my claim sales show, Kickin' It With Onrie, the shopping shows. So be on the lookout for Sam's books to be kicking it very, very soon. But today we're actually talking about another crowdfunding campaign that you got going on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it? And if we can get a link dropped in for Necroholic on Kickstarter, that would be great.
Yeah, let me grab that for you. We have Necroholic now live on Kickstarter. We went live on Monday, so we're literally only 5 days in. And this is the story of a necromancer, and she has a bit of a problem. The problem is she's a necromancer, and she has a little bit of a drinking problem.
Yeah.
So when you go on a bender and you wake up wake up's a bad way to put it. When you come out of your blackout in a cemetery with a lot of restless dead and empty graves, you might have some explaining to do. But you know what, Onrie? I got something that you're going to appreciate, because this book was written by Brian Lee and illustrated by Brian Lee. He's a graduate of the Kubert School. I've known this man since 1999 when he was but a wee lad, and I've known his folks since 1995. But not only are we live on Kickstarter with it, this book is completely done, man.
That is awesome. See, I love that. I love when a creator gets the stuff done before they hit that launch button. I have learned from personal experience that is the best way to go about it. This book looks absolutely fantastic. And the fact that it's not written or illustrated by you and you're publishing it means that you've had to put an awful lot of work into this. So I'm curious to know about how you got, why did you decide to publish your friend's book?
Well, Brian's kind of the canary in the coal mine on this. Sonoma Publishing is a registered publishing company here in the Commonwealth, and we knew eventually that we were going to be moving into putting out other people's books. One of the things is, as you are aware, we ship directly to a number of retailers, and right now we directly ship to 36 retail locations. We just added another retailer last week. And then we also ship and have some distribution through Comics Mainstream Distribution out in Oregon, which is owned by my friend Adam Watson. I believe you're
yes,
we
do know Adam. Yeah, Adam's fantastic.
And so we've got 8 locations through them. Our books are a little brutal with 47, and then Reign of Ages has a little bit of topless nudity in it, so it can't be into all the shops.
You say you got daddies in your books?
I know, right? Well, wait, I got another project in development that'll blow your mind too. But back to this, man, I'll tell you. Brian was the guy who originally, back in 2017, when I started Sonobo, when I started fomenting the idea in my mind, he's like, we were talking about art costs and things, and he suggested I go to Kickstarter. He, having never been on Kickstarter before, didn't tell me that. And I went and I did some research. I said, you know what, we'll do this. And we started our Kickstarter journey with a D&D adventure that I published titled Tale of the Wizard's Eye. And so that was it was not the best formatting job I've ever done. I had a lot to learn, but people liked the adventure. We got it done, and we were only about 2 days late, and that was just because we had some printer problems. And then we came back for another RPG book, and then another RPG book, and then we started finally getting into where we had the capital that we could start taking a swing at getting into comics. And now here we are, 2022. We have 47 Furious Tales, like I said, just finished issue 3. Issue 4 is scheduled for later this year, so we're gonna step up from more than one episode a year now, thank God. We got Necroholic with Brian Lee, and then of course Reign of Ages, which we funded earlier this year. Issue 2 coming to Kickstarter in July. We're expecting that book to have all the interior illustrations done by the week of the 4th of July, which will be our launch week. Right now we're looking at the 7th as our launch day, which should be about the time we're getting books in for Necroholic to ship out for our backers.
So how's your, I know you're handling this publishing business, and that's a full-time job. I've been doing it for a while now. I know how much work is involved. Are you still working your day job? I am. I still work for the courts during the day. I'm still a single dad during the day, and it's summer break, so my little one is here. So we are balancing that. Although today she did go to her mom. She's going to be there for a couple of days, kind of get some birthday celebration time in for her, because her birthday's in about 7 days. And then after she goes to bed, I spend the next several hours working on stuff. And then, of course, after my day job, I'm usually messaging to different retailers and calling them up and say, hey, let's put some Sonopa books on your shelves. And it's been good for us. One of the biggest individual retail contribution we had for the Kickstarter, and we had several that were outside of the Kickstarter too, in the background, but we had one store that actually pledged for 180 books on that. And so, of course, we ship everything bagged and boarded. So just that one Kickstarter contribution was 180 bagged and boarded books, with half of them signed, half of them unsigned, plus the art prints, plus all the little tchotchkes that were added on. And he and I talked about in the background, and some fantastic art by the one and only Alexia Veldhausen. So she's fantastic. I absolutely love her work on 47 Furious Tales.
I think you're really gonna like 3. It reads so quick, and you're like, man, I'm not gonna spoil it, but I think you will particularly appreciate it.
So Kenneth, Cool Gamer, anyone who's joining in with us right now, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here with us this evening, afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. We have a Kickstarter live right now for a new book that our guest, Sam Quinton, has put out called Necroholic. Be sure to check it out and support it. And as Sam has just been telling us, the book is already done. We got the reg covers and the variants ready to go. So as soon as this campaign is done, books are going to be sent out right away. There's no delay. And I can tell you guys, I've been dealing with Sam now for, I want to say, about coming on 2 years.
Yeah, we're coming up on that.
He's always on top of everything. And on top of that, Sam, you've been a really huge inspiration to me. I remember you and I were talking a couple months ago. And it's been, hey, Nick, how you doing? So we got Nick Barucci, the the head honcho of DXP and the head honcho of the original art show, which is going to be airing directly after this. So you guys are looking for some original art, look no further than Nick Barucci's show. Nick's show is the bomb.
I'll tell you, it's something, isn't it? When you get those originals in.
Oh man, that is beautiful.
Original Alexia Veldhausen, man.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
That's about to go to its new home.
I wanted to say, so is that one of the tiers that you have for your campaign right now?
Not for the tier. We don't have any original art tiers for this campaign because Brian works strictly in digital on this. That's actually going to its new home, to a comic shop in Louisiana. That it'll be heading out there tomorrow.
That's fantastic.
So,
and I got my order coming in soon, so I'm super excited. I've been waiting for issue 3 for.
I've already got yours pulled. I'm going to sign those like we talked about, and we'll get the bubble wrap in there, the packing material, and you'll be out tomorrow with the postman. So you probably see it Monday or Tuesday. Monday or Tuesday,
right in time for Kicking It on CBSN. That'll be great. I promise you, I will show.
2-day priority, like always, bro. 2-day priority.
Sir. Yes, sir. But I wanted to go back to what I wanted to say earlier.
Publishing,
working in comics is really about adaptation, and is what I'm kind of learning being into this decade. And I guess you can say that about any field, really. But with comics, you really got to land on your feet quick because of the fact that lucrative opportunities don't always present themselves right away. Stability is one of those things we kind of sacrifice jumping into this field. And I remember talking to you, and I was personally in the dumps. And, you kind of helped me see the light at the end of the tunnel and look into different things, and particularly like with printing. And so I started, looking more. I was usually doing all my offset printing in China prior to, the COVID pandemic. Yeah, the pandemic. I don't know why the words are escaping me every day now, but you turned me on to Mix'em, and I actually didn't end up working with them. I'm working with another company called Avenue 4, but I came into a problem with them that I'm sure you may have or may not have come across with Reign of Ages, where books with nudity in them, Avenue 4 will not print them.
Right.
So I'm kind of like, I'm a little SOL, and it's kind of making me regret now, man, why did I do that? So, why did I do that to myself, in the sense that, when you put nudity in a book, now for us, we're obviously making our comics for ourselves first, and then we're making it for people who are like us, who are going to enjoy it. But when you add something like nudity into a book, there is that danger of closing off potential markets and things like that. Like, it's no longer a kid's book. So with Reign of Ages, why did you make that decision? Like, was it a no-brainer?
Well, Reign of Ages is co-owned by me and Nick Capone. We co-own the trademark and the IP. The copyright's actually registered to both of us. And so we have a very hand-in-hand kind of collaboration with this. And as Nick was going through and he did the layouts and everything, he had a couple of panels that he was just artistically very convinced it just made good sense to have this monstrous foe, who's a traditional monster, Medusa, being topless in this scene. And he's right, it made good sense. And the thing about that is, it affects the markets we can be in, because that kept us from, say, for example, being able to be in a lot of stores that particularly have high concentrations of children as their client base. It kept us, it's one of the things that is continuing to keep us off the shelves at supermarkets and grocery stores, which is one of the markets I'm really trying to penetrate, to the point that I've actually started scripting for a couple of projects that I'm hoping to pitch to be carried on the shelves at a couple of larger grocery chains. If we can get that to work, then everything else is just keeping up with the production. But the nudity thing, it was an artistic choice, and it did hit our affected market, no doubt about it. But by the same token, I think it might have strengthened a market that we hadn't really been in before, because we hadn't really touched into that bad girl fantasy motif for comics before. The RPG stuff, certainly. We've seen some crossover from our the folks who buy our RPG books in getting into Reign, especially the folks who are carrying like the Tarot Adventure series that we produce, and then Whispers of Persephone. Because one of the things about this is that in Reign we're sprinkling in little Easter eggs for the settings for those for the readers, and so our readers not just enjoying the comic, our readers who are playing through these adventures also like, oh hey, I know where that's at, and that's, I think, is a really strong appeal to cross populate our market and strengthen the commitment of our readers. So we definitely lost, I think, scale on one sense, but I think we strengthened our commitment of our main base.
That's interesting. You and I need to have a conversation about this after the show is over, about your approach to getting books in grocery store chains and things like that, because I'm heading up an initiative right now for Scout Comics to do exactly that. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what the experience has been like for you, and like where you started. In fact, you can just answer it on the show.
I got shut down when I was approaching the first couple for.
Well, how did it all start? Like where did you begin with this? Because
it was very, very simple actually. I simply tracked down who was doing the ordering and who was supplying, and then tracked through just public information on their company websites until I found the people who were in those departments, made initial contact through their admin and support staff, and said, hey, I own a small publishing company. We're interested in putting our projects on the shelves and helping us all make more money. I'd like to talk to you guys if we can. Managed to get a 35, it was weird time slot, it was a 35-minute meeting, and sent the PDFs. I told them I'd go ahead and send them some print copies, but we were kind of on a short cycle, and I only had 8 days to get stuff together. And we sat down and talked about it. They liked the numbers. The content bothered them. The 47 Furious Tales having a lot of decapitations, a lot of bloodshed. It definitely is a late teenage book, probably 16 and up. And then Reign of Ages is probably best addressed at 18 and up, which is difficult when you're at a checkout lane, which is spurring the motivation to go to development of a softer title for maybe an all age range, something that people can feel comfortable picking up. And looking at the Japanese model of the small chapter selections, one, in an acceleration of production time. So if we're doing just 20 pages, black and white, manga format, and then doing mass printing on that. Because one of the chains that I was talking to, the one I'm talking about this meeting, actually, they have 2,800 locations just in the United States. Now, the thing about that is that I went through their local, they have 2 locations here in Frankfurt, and I went through those, and I counted the aisles, and I looked at the books that they actually had on their checkout lanes. And I realized that at any one time, they had a little over 100 copies of the books that they were carrying at that point. And these are smaller store locations. So if we use those as the baseline metric, and there's 2,803 or whatever it is, 33 or whatever, and each one's carrying at least 100, that's 280,000 copies. So, if you can, even rounding that down to 250,000 copies a quarter, I mean, the print cost on 20 pages, black and white, in a manga format would mean that you could literally put that on the shelf with a $1.99 price point, giving the retailer a 50% margin, making 18 cents a book yourself per, and at 250,000 times 18 cents, that's
and keep those comics going.
And we're talking that's an 18-cent net pre-tax, right? That's the difference between the production cost for printing and shipping directly to their warehouses. Because obviously I don't want to handle 250,000 books myself.
No, you gotta send it off to
their warehouses directly. So
what a great initiative, though. I mean, it's something that
it hasn't worked yet, but I'm still taking that very seriously.
You're working on it, because I gotta say that's the only thing that's missing, and this is my theory, and has been since I got into dealing, is that independent creator-owned books, that's the future, because what's going to happen over the next like 5 to 10 years, and we're already starting to see it happen, is fatigue of Marvel movies and DC stuff and Star Wars, all this stuff. I'm not saying it's going to go away. That's not what I'm saying. And I don't want it to go away. I want it to stay here because I love Marvel. I love my DC. I love my Star Wars, some Star Wars. But, all that stuff, I love it. And it helps usher in new stuff. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see the shift start to change. And what I really want to see is more creator-owned books on available to the mass market.
Yep.
I think that's a really important thing, because that's what's keeping everything from getting to that next level, right? And it's a challenge, because when you look at it from the comic book standpoint of what makes a comic successful, typically what the pattern has always looked like is you put a well-known creative team behind that book. So if you put Garth Ennis on a book, people are going to know Garth Ennis because of all the work he's done in comics. Plus, he's had a number of his projects adapted to the small screen and the big screen.
Yeah, he's been everywhere. Yeah.
He's been everywhere. But I think when it comes to guys like us, who aren't necessarily the freelance type, that we want to focus on our projects and put everything into them. The way I look at what we do is we're more than just comic book creators. We're all entrepreneurs. We're all trying to build a brand based off of our projects, because we know that there is more potential in the long term if we commit ourselves to every aspect. Now, the problem with that is you're wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah.
You're not getting paid work. You're not getting paid to do this work. You're making the investment of your own time, your own blood, sweat, and tears in order to get to that point where hopefully you'll see something happen if you make the right choices and if you're doing all the right things along the way.
Right.
So, and you've also been a comic shop owner, so you know the ins and outs of this business as well as anybody, I would say. But not as well as anybody, a bit more than most people, because having that experience has helped. So let's look into Sinopa Publishing a little bit more.
Sure.
And how you got into this, and how you've been able to make it work, especially through the pandemic.
Yeah. So like I opened my comic shop in 1999, and the reason I specifically did that is I wanted to eventually get into making comics and role-playing games, and I thought that one of the best ways to do that was to needed to generate revenue to be able to afford it, since I can't draw. And so opening a shop in the town I lived in, because my local shop was going out of business, made a lot of sense. And so I opened that, and it was a rough start, because getting a comic shop going when you don't really know the background of it very well is a sink or swim kind of proposition. And we very nearly sank in the first couple of months. But then we kind of got some footing underneath us, and that store actually went and survived for 5 years. I did sell it when I got divorced, right before I started my divorce proceedings, but and then it continued on for several years after that. But the lessons learned were important. And then when 2017 came along, and I was looking at, I'd remarried, and we had my dear little Willow, and my other kids and everything. And so basically Sinopa came into being as a need to, one, flex that creativity, and two, to work on building something to leave behind for the kids. And when the pandemic hit and caught me a little flat-footed, because in 2019 I had just sunk a lot of my capital, a lot of the free floating capital, into a 3,000 copy press run order for 47 Furious Tales issue 1, because we had only printed 500 books on the first cover, which makes that cover pretty rare.
Absolutely.
But I learned a really hard lesson on that I should have seen coming from a mile away. And that was I needed the economy of scale on that press run to be able to afford to put books in front of retailers at a price point that was appealing to them. So a good example, 47 Furious Tales retails typically at $5. Now in some markets a little higher because of their own local market demands. Like in Florida, for a couple of shops we supply there, I know they routinely put a $6 or $7 price tag on Rain and on 47 because they have higher overhead demands, things like that. But they're getting those books at a 50% discount on that $5 price point, so long as they meet their minimum order per shipment. And so they're basically doubling their money up on the sales from Sonoma books. Now that's a big thing in the whole marketing equation, because when I come to you, Onrie, and I say, hey, I can sell you some books, you can double your money, and you've sold a huge number of 47 books so far. And what happens every time you sell a 47 book? You at least double your money.
I double my money. Absolutely.
So here's the thing that I find when I get the books in, and if it's a market that likes those titles and they start to move, I see that I get more return business, because once people are like, hey, we sold through this, and they realize we don't have like a weekly order we have to do with Sonoma Publishing. If we get the books in, we put them on the shelves and they sell out in a couple of days, we can call Sam and he'll ship us some books. And if he's sold out, we know that we can tell people, well, it's sold out, but when they do the next press run, they'll have a new cover and we'll get that to you. And that has made a big difference too, because the whole thing with not reprinting covers on floppies, which is not unique to us by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely makes a big impact. It lets us flex around with the depth of the bench of the artists that we work with. It lets us get work out by Alexia Veldhausen, by Kendall Gates, by Nick Capone, by Brian Lee. We've actually had covers by Paul Walcott, a few of them now, as you know, and then some pretty well known people like Fernando Ruiz. We have a cover from Justin Hunt coming for Reign of Ages issue 2, and then Aysegul Senev is returning for issue 2. Just fantastic depths of talent who I find are grateful to be on the book that keeps paying them to produce new and exciting work, which is a good relationship to have professionally. It makes it easy to meet that particular portion of the production, and it keeps things exciting for us, and then stable for the retailers, because the retailers making the money is just part of the equation. They need to make the money consistently, because every month out of that profit margin comes their overhead. So the more books that you can bring to them that they can make money on, the better and healthier everyone is. And so that comes back to starting to publish other people's work, and Brian being the canary in the coal mine. There are some perils in publishing other people's work. You have a real duty of care to someone else's IP and properties that you have to be very serious about undertaking. And so when you look at that, your marketing has to be strong. You have to be in communication with your retailers. And so one of the things that we did was, as you know, with Mix'em, like I can get like a single proof copy done, fine, but I can get 25 done and it's only like $1 more. So I got 25 of each of them run, so that we could take and send out copies to our supporting retailers. And we're going to use that as our actual marketing to bring our retailers into supporting the campaign and the title. So we'll have some retailers who will, as we did with Reign of Ages, have their own unique retailer tier, so that anyone who knows that store is in the area say, oh, hey, I don't have to pay through the Kickstarter. I can just go down to the Collective or the Box or the Hive or Gotham Underground or Third Eye Comics and just say, hey, I saw you guys getting this. I want to go ahead and order that. And then they can get it for their $5 and not have to worry about the $8 in shipping costs that we have to append onto the Kickstarter, which makes a hell of a difference, especially if someone's on a tight budget, and lets them get into the title at an affordable price point. And so that's another part of the overall strategy, to keep ticking those boxes to make it easy and accessible to get the book into people's hands. And yeah, while the margin on the individual book gets smaller, especially right now when print costs are through the roof, the key thing is that our efforts right now are trying to maintain our consistent price point so that we make sure that we hold on to our readers, that we don't price them out of the title. And that's been a big effort. And it necessitates
it comes at a big expense to you too.
Yes, yeah.
There's nothing left for, like, there's very little left for you on the bone between what your business is getting and what you're getting.
Right. And so like the big criticism I often get is that my Kickstarter price points aren't very high. Right. And part of the reason is that I don't want to price anyone out. And so we're basically charging what our book's retail price is, plus the shipping costs and the Kickstarter fee. And I'm trying to hold on to that model as long as possible. It is difficult. But the thing about that is that I don't target to make money on the Kickstarter. I target on the Kickstarters and the Indiegogo campaigns to actually fund production, fund printing, help supplement, the art costs and everything. Because right now the sales what happened was as we produced those RPG books and started sales and such, we got into 47 using revenue from that. And as we continue to sell those books and 47, we got more money. We got into book 2 and then eventually to book 3. And then Nick, seeing that we were producing books, he and I had talked and we decided to do our thing. And Rain funded like crazy and real well. People have really liked that book. I'm actually almost sold out. And the funny part is we have an Indiegogo campaign right now for an Indiegogo exclusive Reign of Ages cover by Nick Kompan. And I had a message when I woke up this morning from one of the new backers who said, "Hey, can we get some of those sweet other covers from the Kickstarter campaign?" I'm like, yes, because I think I've pulled all the ones I need for the 47 campaign. And I need to just set aside the handful I need for the Necroholic campaign, and then I have an actual hard inventory I can check for any damages or anything and make sure. And so that should be up on Sunday, so those guys can add those on too. But that was a really encouraging thing to see from just one guy who made my entire day by saying, "Hey, can we get these other cool covers too?" And how awesome is that when someone on the Indiegogo, and the Indiegogo is not something we do a lot with, it's only really our second campaign. Someone comes out of the blue and says, "Hey man, these are cool. We'd like to get that too." And that's a fantastic feeling.
So let's talk about distribution a little bit more, because you seem to have Kickstarter and your growing list of retailers to carry you so far. Are there any other methods you're using, like conventions? And if so, which ones can we expect to find?
Yeah, normally I've been doing the Garden State Comic Festival. I'm not going to be doing it this year because, as you know, I was really sick in April, and so I'm kind of holding on to funds to make sure I cover those medical bills when they finally hit after my insurance company's done with them. I am investigating New York Comic Con to see if I can get into that, and then there's a few local cons I'd really like to get into, particularly. And this one might be a little hard. There's a horror convention in Louisville in October that is incredibly well attended. I mean, it's just a huge event. And I'm hoping to get a vendor spot in that. I'm a little outside the normal horror motif, but I don't think it'll be too bad, especially if I can get like stocked up on another press run of Whispers of Persephone or some of our other dark material. And then there's a convention in Cincinnati that I am going to try to get into for next year, particularly because this year my understanding is they booked almost instantly. So be adding more conventions. Want to be following along and try and mimic your success of emptying boxes. Actually, I was thinking about you last night when I was going through. I just got done emptying the second box of issue 3. And I picked up those empty boxes. I'm like, Onrie lives this on conventions, and I live it in my home office. I'm like, we got to expand and catch up a little bit.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. It's a wonderful feeling when your hard work is paying off, and those empty boxes are there's nothing more evident of creator-owned success than that. And of course, I think we all need to work as a collective in order to change what that means, because I think an empty box is one thing.
Which is why my home office is such a mess right now.
But seeing a seeing a bunch of zeros and a 1 in front of all those zeros on your paycheck is even better. And you know, I'm a firm believer that, you know, people who work in comics should be paid for their work, especially us as publishers, because I think it's the most. I mean, we're dealing with so many different things, you know, and I want to believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel with that, and there are a few companies that are really pushing those initiatives and trying to get us as an industry to that point. Because I remember, like, when I was in college, you know, like, the idea of pursuing a career in comics was kind of ludicrous. Like, you can't do that. Like, there's no career in comics, you know, unless you're writing or unless you're an editor, unless you fall into this little pocket. But what about the entrepreneur? How come everybody else can start a business, have a startup, and raise all this capital and not actually produce anything? And, you know, us creators can't figure it out. So, you know, I look to people like Brian Polito. I look to people like you who are always looking for new avenues of opportunity and are constantly trying to push boundaries.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, we actually do, I think we do a lot with a little. You know, our Kickstarter campaigns for comics usually run around $5,000 to, you know, the high $6,000 range, which is not, in the grand scheme of things, a lot. It's about enough to cover, you know, what you would cover on the art costs. But it's the stuff that's behind and away from that, the stuff that's going out to, like, the retailers. Like, I'll go ahead and rat out The Collective, for example. The Collective, last year, I was really happy to tell everyone that they'd sold over 100 copies of issue 1 of 47 Furious Tales. They constantly order anytime we get an order in. And I just shipped them 30 more copies, you know, of just issue 1. You know, I mean, that's a lot of copies of a single issue to be moving at one store location, you know, which I think that actually puts them up to 150 copies of issue 1 so far, which is just mind blowing to me. You know, it's like a whole box of one of these short boxes. It's just, yeah, it took over time, but I mean, hey, repeat business is the best business.
I agree with that, and I think that's the major thing, is like, how do you keep your customers coming back? How do you keep them happy? I want to go and respond to some of these awesome comments here. So David Moore, he's in here, and he's saying you can only go to the well so much for the big two. Agreed with that. People are wanting great storytelling and ideas, which indie books are providing. I agree with that 100%. And then he was going on to respond to our empty boxes. The empty boxes are full of dreams. Actually, they're just empty boxes that you can now put more stuff inside.
You can turn it around and use those to ship them to other locations. Yeah.
Ship them out. You use them to ship out stuff. Absolutely. That's like the saddest thing. Now when I look back on it after all these conventions, and I keep looking at all those boxes that I left behind, because, you know, when you have those empty boxes, even if you collapse them, there's not much room to take them with you and reuse them again. So they just kind of stay there and get lost. And I'm one of those guys who likes to.
I have a good helpful solution for that.
Oh, okay.
Give the boxes to the cosplayers so that they can just drop their stuff in the boxes and carry it out easier.
Ah, there you go. Here's an even better idea. Charge them 50 cents a box. Always be selling. Always be selling. All right, we got JD Smith saying, going to be interesting to hear how the horror con goes. The pro is that horror fanatics are avid collectors. The con is that they're hardcore about collectibles being horror related. Right.
It's really hard to break through that horror barrier if you're not doing strictly horror stuff. Yeah.
You know what? Here's how I do it. And this has worked for me every single time. You give them the pitch to your book, right? You show them the art and everything and make sure they're looking at it like that. And then as soon as you're done giving the pitch, you go like this. Ah! So, give me your money.
Well, you know, I think for the horror con, my ace in the hole is I'll bring Whispers of Persephone. And we have 2 versions of that book. We have a black cover with the title lettering that was really well done by oh, good Lord, Christian Martinez. Oh, pardon me, Christian. But then we also have the spine, the flesh and bone spine cover, which was done by Christian. And Christian did this, and he understood it was a real challenge, but he did a remarkable job. That book, the way it's laid out, the spine of the book is illustrated to look like a spinal cord, and then the flesh is flayed away from it as it spreads out to the front of the book. So it's basically looks like the book as it's opened is the backside of this undead that's been flayed open.
That's cool. Kind of reminds me of the book of the Dead.
I was looking to see if I had another copy that I could show you, but I'm pretty sure I'm actually sold out. Yeah, I think I've even sold my personal copy right now. So,
security, we have Onrie near a microphone. Sorry about that. Rest in peace, headphone wearers. Come on, guys. If you're watching this show, you guys know you should not be wearing headphones when I'm on the air. Or if you are, and you hear me yell and scream into the microphone, that just means that I now got your attention. So there we go.
And guys, this coming week, make sure that you swing by, pick up your copies of 47 and of Reign of Ages from Onrie. He's going to have some stuff. I'm signing it, and he went and was very particular. He went and got the Virgin variants by Nick Capone. There were actually only 700 of these made, which I realize sounds like it's a step up, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, only 700 printed is not really a whole lot, especially since we won't be reprinting that cover. So definitely take advantage of that while they last, because the only other thing that cover will be used for is to make posters. I don't think we're going to put it on any other merch, but definitely posters.
That's awesome. That's excellent. I cannot wait. And I know that my customers are going to be super excited to see these books come in, especially 47 Furious Tales. So you guys will definitely get a chance to jump on that as of next week. Can you send us the Kickstarter link again? Okay, he's got it.
Yeah, right. Just drop that in there.
Kyle's going to drop that in there. Now, we got a little under 18 minutes left to go on this episode. So I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let's bring everything over to Necroholic now.
Sure.
So Necroholic, who's the age audience for that?
I would say probably 18 plus. You could probably get away with 16 plus, but the premise of the story does hinge largely on the main character having an alcoholic problem. And that drives a lot of the troubles that particular protagonist is working to overcome, because she basically creates her own problems. And through the course of the stories, the problems she creates are amplified by the influences of other actors in the story, and not even directly attacking her in that matter. It's just that they kind of work together to synergize to make her life more difficult. And so in doing that, you have this great story of overcoming your own problems, told with a good comic beat that has some good, strong humor in it. One of the things that was really wild about this, actually, a little telling on myself, as one of the editors on this book, I really didn't have a whole lot of actual editing to do, because Brian, again, Cooper School graduate, and his sequential art, the pacing of that was phenomenal. I think there was only 2 panels I had suggestions on for the entire course of the book, and for the entire issue. It was remarkably well laid out from the beginning, and he just attacked it. Now, it came over originally from a webcomic that he was putting out, and then he adapted that rather than just import the images directly and land them on the page, which doesn't necessarily flow well for a traditional comic as opposed to a webcomic. We actually went through and drew the pages precisely so that they fit in the medium. He was very, very conscious of that. And I'll tell you another thing too. There's some interesting bits in here that make it, again, 18 and up. We got a little cocktail recipe in this. But what's fascinating, Onrie, this is illustrated. This is not a photograph.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, how bizarre is that? That pseudo-realism level that he took to those from this fantastic style that he's developed particularly for this comic. And it's just
is he doing all the coloring too?
He did everything. He did the coloring, the lettering, the whole nine. We'll do issue 2 later this year. He's working on it now. And then our schedule for 2023 brings us up to a regular production cadence that should see 3 issues a year. So, and this currently the storyline is laid out that we're in right now for 24 issues.
Wow.
So we'll get this taking off and get people liking it, hopefully. We are actually pretty close to being funded already. We're like 70-something%. Yeah. We're only $609 away from our $2,500 goal. 78 backers already. And that's a hell of a launch for something that we really didn't have a lot of appearances tied to.
That's excellent. And guys, remember, when you back a Kickstarter, you're not being charged right away. You're being charged as soon as the campaign ends. Mm-hmm. So this is a great book to get behind. It sounds really fantastic. It sounds like if you're into, I want to say Doctor Strange and Hancock. When you say Hancock because he was drunk, I never actually saw Hancock.
Yeah, I would say there's a little bit of this that kind of brings to mind some of the Cthulhu-esque novels, not really the Lovecraft stuff, but some of the post-Lovecraft stuff. Certainly in not as deep in the horror aspect, but definitely in the storytelling methodology and the scenes that everything is taking place in. As you notice, the book is very, very dark in its color palette, and we'll see it a little lighter in issue 2, not a whole lot. But again, our principal character is a necromancer with a drinking problem, so it's not My Little Ponies.
And does the creator bring any of his own experiences dealing with alcoholism to the mix, or is this?
Thankfully, no. This is entirely based on fiction and observations of other people around us. I say that because he and I obviously we've known each other for well over 20 years. He and I know several of the same people, and some of the same people we share in common have had to overcome their demons in a bottle. One friend in particular comes to mind, and she's been sober 6 years now. I'm very grateful that she has been, because 7 years ago I would have told you that she would have drank herself to death by now, and thankfully I was wrong.
No. I'm glad to hear that. It's very unfortunate, and substance abuse and all that kind of stuff is just such a hard thing to recognize. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting topic.
She fought it. She fought it tooth and nail. She, like she says, even to this day, she fights every day to stay sober, and she keeps fighting until she wins, and then she starts again the next day. And for her, it's a daily battle, but her life has turned around a lot, and she takes every precaution she can. She's been completely sober now for 6 years.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that that's the case for your friend. That's very inspiring. It's really hard, and especially when you look at how difficult life can be sometimes when you travel down those dark tunnels, because we've all been there. At some point, It's how we get ourselves out of it that really counts. So is there any can you give us kind of a hint? Is this going to be kind of like a more sad story? Is this going to kind of have some light at the end of the tunnel? Like what can we expect to see out of this?
I think this follows, I think the best way to describe this, because obviously I have the entire production outline for the 24 issues. And I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but what I can tell you is that this harkens back to a lot of the old school storytelling from like the 60s and the 70s, when you have episodic series that are good about building a long running narrative. There's a little something in this that kind of reminds me of very early Doctor Strange. And then there's other elements that remind me of some of the running Tales of the Crypt stuff.
It's interesting.
But there's so much in here that reminds me of stuff now from a technical application for how the story is told and how well the story flows. I gotta tell you, Brian's storytelling ability on this is hands down just fantastic. And this is his first comic that he's gone ahead and completely produced himself, because he graduated from the Cooper School. He's done a lot of work for Sinopa for illustrations for RPGs particularly. And he had this going on in the background while he was working his day job. And now it just came to a point where we had 47, we had rain, and I was talking to Brian. He's like, I want to put my comic out. I'm like, all right, I'll help you. What do you need? He's like, I need a publisher. Well, I said, I own a publishing company. Let's make it happen. And so I kicked him in the pants a little bit, and he got his stuff done on schedule, which is something Brian's really well known for. His freaking stickler for production schedule. Which is one of the reasons I'm confident in getting 3 issues out next year, because we'll have like I said, we'll have issue 2 done this year, and he'll be working on issue 3 by the time Thanksgiving rolls around. And so the big question then becomes, next year, do we start consolidating books into one big campaign, kind of like Pete Samedi does on Indiegogo with, the multiple titles for Alterna Comics, or do we continue to use one campaign at a time until we have a big enough reader base? And right now I'm kind of on the fence. I'm leaning a little bit to continuing to doing one book at a time so that we can grow the individual reader bases before we combine them. The big draw to combining the campaigns is that it saves the customer money because it consolidates the shipping cost. So I can ship one book for about $5 to $6, depending on the destination. I can ship 3 in the United States in a legal flat rate for about $8.43, and I can ship 5 in a legal flat rate for $8.43. So if I've got 3, 4, 5 books that someone's interested in and enjoys, and I'm charging regular cover price for them, then when I put them into one campaign and it's consolidated down, and they're only paying that same 8 something for shipping one big bundle of books, that's a big deal, and I like the idea of being able to bring stuff to the consumer that's sustainable financially, responsible financially, and still has that effect of being able to make sure everyone gets paid. Big deal there.
I agree with that. Absolutely. Making sure everybody's paid is extremely important, and it's something I always am a stickler for, because word gets out real fast. And if you're one of those guys who doesn't pay up right away, people will start talking.
Oh yeah.
If you're someone who's difficult to work with, people will start talking. So and it's never easy. You can't always make everybody happy. I've had a recent experience with a creator that did not go favorably for me, and I still did what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it hurt, and it's one of those things where it's like, you just got to suck it up.
Yeah. I mean, we have, I get paid last, and when I get paid, I turn around, I put the money in other projects, because again, we're using the crowdfunding to help create the project.
You're money balling the next book. Exactly.
Exactly. We're basically growing the catalog,
Absolutely.
and we do need to put some more digital avenues out there. Right now, our digital is basically just Drive-Thru Comics and Drive-Thru RPG. I do need to grow out the digital more, which I'm looking at. I was actually considering finally going to Comixology, and then Comixology kind of stopped selling comics.
I think that was one of the greatest blunders in the history of comics. I think Comixology failed miserably.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that and it's not Comixology themselves that failed. It was Amazon that failed the consumer market, because they had to make it proprietary. They had to ruin everything that worked so well initially about Comixology, which was you download the app, you buy everything through the app. I stopped buying comics digitally a very long time ago. The moment that Amazon bought Comixology out and you had to go online to check out everything, that was it for me. I was like, I'm done. I'm not on board with this, and I just don't like dealing with them as a publisher. It's extremely frustrating. Mm-hmm. Every single time I upload files, it's not good enough. Something doesn't work, and it's all automated. There's no one you can actually talk to.
Right. So
I'm not the biggest fan of Comixology, just in general. I have nothing personal against them, but I think it was just the way Amazon handled that, that purchase was just terrible. It's made it so you're creating, it's already hard enough getting people to buy comics. I mean, you got your comic fans that are always going to be buying comics, but the people who are not buying comics, we're talking about the mainstream people, right? The people we're trying to get, the mass market.
Right.
They're not on to comics. The only reason why they're on to comics is because of the success of the movies, right? Or the success of any other TV show that might follow. Like when we saw Umbrella Academy get adapted, people were really on top of that. And like, now all of a sudden we saw a spike in sales for that particular book.
Yeah.
Same thing with The Boys and other books.
And Umbrella Academy, as well as like Invincible, are a really good example of how the publisher took advantage of that really well. Because you'll notice Umbrella Academy, when season 1 launched, you were really easily able to get a hold of the collection of everything that's been released to date. Easily accessible to the marketplace. You could go to Amazon, you could go to your local comic shop, you could go to a bookstore, Barnes and Noble, and you could get it. And being accessible to the marketplace, that having that opportunity for people to give you money is a huge thing. And so that's, and I realize people think I'm a little nuts about this. 36 stores is not a lot. I want to get to 50 by the end of the year. And it's
a steady. See, it's a slow build. But eventually, you'll have 100 stores, and after that, you'll have 200.
Right?
It's all about building and maintaining those relationships. That's the definition of business, isn't it?
Yeah, and if my net after shipping and costs and everything is even as low as like $5 a box, that's a net that's going into other proceeds. So, well, yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean, I'm investing my time in the future of the company to build something that actually is working, and I get to refine processes as we go along. Now, granted, I have confined space, no warehouse, so
yeah,
you gotta take things where you can. But I'll tell you, I did a thing when I went through and I looked at 47 and what was on hand, right? And remember, in 2019, we printed 3,000 books and the pandemic hit. Well, of those 3,000 books, we've got a little less than 1,200 left.
That's fantastic.
And I mean, if you're moving 1,800 copies of an indie book through retailers, through other Kickstarter campaigns, through direct sales at stuff, I mean, that's, to me, that's a big deal. I mean, that's literally the only way we were able to pay for getting stuff done for issue 2 and issue 3 and some of the other projects we've got cooking.
That's awesome. Well, Sam, I hate to do this. We got to actually cut this short because Nick's show's about to air. So
Cool.
Do us a favor, give us your final shout out, and then we gotta end this episode here.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Necroholic live on Kickstarter. Book is done. We actually have all of the pledge for the your name on the tombstones have already been claimed. So we're going to be putting those on in the last week of the campaign. We will be ordering books the day after the campaign closes. Our ETA for return on that from our printer is 10 days. And so we will actually start shipping your books before we get the funds from Kickstarter. You're going to have your book in July. We ran a little late on 47 issue 3 because we had an art issue. We don't have those issues anymore. Everything's going to be done going forward, and we're going to make sure this works for everyone. And also, if you're a Reign of Ages fan, you can get copies of Reign of Ages on Indiegogo as well as in the campaign. And when we're actually, for our Indiegogo fans, we're going to be adding Necroholic copies now too, since we are right where we expect. We're a little bit higher than we expected to be now. Very confident that we're going to get funded. Forget to these fine people here in the audience.
Awesome. All right, Sam, thank you so much. We will definitely have you back, as you know. And folks, we will be back next week with a brand new episode. And until that time comes, have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you guys on the Experience next week.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out.